Hey baby T, I can't wait to meet you. Apologies to anyone stumbling across this video about poor audiovisual quality and my husband hacking up a log in the background. We're both sick, and this is mostly for me, this is mostly for my child, but I'm hoping someone out there going through infertility can get something out of it. And as anyone going through infertility knows, it can be very time consuming and very money consuming. So the fact that I'm not ready to invest in a ring light or a proper microphone is, very low on my priority list. But hey, maybe if I get enough people interested, I'll invest in one. So I finally have some time to sit down and recount the crazy year that I've had. And I don't even know where to start, partially because I have a really bad cold, hence the extra time on my hands, and partially because it's been that crazy of a year. So let's start at the end of 2020, where the whole fiasco began. I am dealing with some seasonal depression, which is part of why I am not doing a whole lot to make our landlord at the time fix our shower. The cold water doesn't work, so our options are either going someplace else to shower or filling the bathtub with half boiling water, half freezing water from the sink, which is kind of a complicated process. But I just don't have it in me to put up the fight. I'm also just tired all the time. So the two most interesting things to happen in January 2021 was I suddenly stopped getting my cycles. Wasn't sure why. I had a theory. Talked to my doctor about it. They said wait it out just a little bit longer. And while I was waiting it out, I had the opportunity to get my COVID shot early, which I did gladly, and to this day do not regret one bit, because not related to this story. Just I feel it's very important to tell people that it's a very good choice and is completely unrelated to this story. There are people in my life who think it is related. Literally just a tangent. So when I finally do see my doctor face-to-face in January, we talk about my theory for what was causing my amenorrhea, as it's technically called, and I hadn't had a positive pregnancy test. That was one of the first things I checked. And we ran through a few ideas and had a treatment plan ready, but the doctor said she first wanted to rule out iron deficiency and thyroid disease, which runs in my family, so it made perfect sense. We figured those would come back normal and get my referral for OBGYN for further treatment. So surprisingly, with that visit, we found out that my thyroid was a little off. However, at the time it was deemed subclinical hypothyroidism. So again, take a wait and see approach. And it was rough. I was sleeping the majority of the time. My body just did not want to move. My hair was falling out like crazy. And the biggest thing I remember as a sure sign that it had gone from subclinical to fully clinical is after lying in bed for a little bit, I felt very stiff getting up, and while shuffling to the bathroom, I see a pile of clothes I left the night before. So I bent down to pick it up, and I dropped it because my shoulders needed to stretch before picking up a half-pound pile of clothes. Clearly I'm not healthy. And want to know the best part about feeling like this for such a long time?
my husband broke his ankle the same time my thyroid decided to crap out on me. So not only was I struggling with my health, but my husband needed help doing things like showering. So I'm trying to nurse my husband and nurse myself at the same time, and it was just not a good spring at all. So sometime in the spring, our shower finally got fixed. We happened to be home. My husband had a broken ankle, so he wasn't going anywhere, and he could let repair people in. But after his ankle healed, and while I was looking to make an appointment with an endocrinologist, our kitchen sink broke, and that unit did not have a dishwasher. So if our landlord is not fixing our kitchen sink, which they weren't, how are we supposed to wash our dishes that we eat off of? How are we supposed to wash anything we cook with? How are we supposed to eat at home? We were Googling lawyers and information on that, and I ended up, per recommendation, first calling the city inspector, letting them know that we had severe maintenance needs that were not being acknowledged. And in the meantime, I had my endocrinologist appointment, and since I happened to not be working because I was at the doctor waiting to get my blood drawn, I get a call from my landlord saying they were at my front door with the city inspector and their key didn't work in our door. The key that they had gotten from our previous landlord didn't work. Why are you just now figuring this out? That's not what I said, but what I probably should have said. We had multiple repair requests before, and you're just now finding out that you can't even enter our apartment. That seems like it's more of a your problem than my problem, because we haven't touched the locks. And are you not even communicating with your maintenance team? So we ended up getting a new set of keys. We got our kitchen sink fixed. We're still very unhappy with our landlord. And I did find out that I do have Hashimoto's disease. So my immune system is attacking my thyroid. My mom had Graves' disease, which is also the immune system attacking the thyroid, just a different part of the thyroid. And my grandmother had thyroid nodules, so this is nothing new. If I remember correctly, some of my dad's sisters have thyroid disease too, so it had just finally showed up. But I believe it was also around this time that we found out the good news that a couple of our friends from college, a few states away, were getting married, and we were super excited. And I was asked to be the maid of honor, which I was very honored to do for my friend. And we were now not only preparing for a move, but a wedding, and getting my health on track. It was just a matter of monitoring, making sure my medications were working. So in June we start apartment shopping. We don't want our leases to overlap too much, but we also need to get the F out of this crap hole. And also plan for an out-of-state wedding. I'm trying to plan a bridal shower and bachelorette party a few states away. And yeah, it's a lot. It's busy. And then we finally get to the wedding, which was beautiful and wonderful and lots of fun. And the trip was a nice break from dealing with searching for apartments and packing and trying to figure everything out. You can probably hear that my husband has pretty much the same thing I do. Guess where I got it from. But continuing the story, we come back home around midnight from our trip to Illinois, and we unlock our door and we're like, what is that smell? And of course, just got home from a long drive. The first thing I want to do is use the bathroom. I go to the bathroom and I notice the carpet right outside the bathroom is soaking wet. And I turn on the light and oh my god, the sewer threw up
all over our bathroom. There is debris in the bathtub. The toilet is coated in debris. It's just, and the floor is a mess. It was disgusting. We called the emergency maintenance line. No surprise that we didn't get much of a response, but we ended up spending a night in a hotel. And I gave them a day to respond. When it was looking like we might not get a response, I tried calling the main office, not the maintenance office, but the actual office, and still nothing. So I ended up taking a day off work because I was just stressed out of my mind. I had a ton of laundry to do because the first thing we had done was try to put some towels down so I could use the dang toilet, and it's just, no, I just ended up with a ton of laundry to do, which we were able to stay at my parents' place for a couple days, and when it was looking like we were getting to pretty close to the 48-hour mark with no response, for quite literally we can't live in our apartment maintenance need, I actually emailed some lawyers via a helpful site I found online, and the free advice I was given was if I don't hear anything back, if they haven't fixed it within 48 hours, I can spend, it was like $300 or something like that, to file basically an emergency action lawsuit against them. And when it was looking like nothing was happening, I called the main office and I said, I didn't say I was going to. I said, I am looking into this emergency legal action, and named the statute in the state law that allows me to take such action. Oh boy, did they take care of it right away. Which I'm glad they did, and they reimbursed our hotel stay. And yeah, we were so done. We were so ready to look for a new place and just get the F out of there. To the point that during packing, I tried to remove our command hooks neatly, but a couple of them took some drywall with them, and I was like, why should I even care? Why should I even care? So one of the things I had forgot to mention is that when we decided we were going to start looking for a new apartment, because this place royally sucked, we did put in a letter of intention to vacate, along with a list of everything in the apartment that needed repairs, most of them minor, but we laid it all out there. We didn't hear anything back, so I mailed another one and took a video of the time and date at the post office, where I put it in the big blue bin outside, where it would definitely reach its destination, and if they tried to claim that we did not send it, we had every evidence we needed that we indeed let them know. The reason I remember that is because we found a new apartment that we really liked. It was not the area we were originally looking at. For a while it was our second choice, but it had 2 bedrooms, which was the main thing we were looking for because we wanted to try to have a baby, and it also had a little playground outside, which was really cute. The whole area was very family friendly, so we were excited to start our little family in this apartment. And granted, we were applying tenants, so of course they're going to be very responsive with us, but we ended up getting calls saying, hey, I tried to get your renter's information from your current place and they haven't gotten back to us. More calls to the office, and more emails basically saying, you will provide this information or we will get a legal team involved again. And finally got the information. I'm sure one of the emails was our unofficial intent to vacate, letter because they said the only thing missing after I had made a couple calls was our current place had never received our intent to vacate letter. However, they also haven't received any renewal lease contract, so I don't know what they were thinking. And I mailed them 2 intentions to vacate. So when I emailed them, we mailed you 2 of them. We have video of it, and you will provide it to our new place, or else. They might have just taken that as our intent to vacate and left it at that. But moving day was extremely stressful because our lease ended on September 1st and our lease started on September 1st. So wake up bright and early, move everything, and that was that. We were very excited to be just someplace new. Like, it was a stressful move, but we were in a place that actually takes care of us, and a place we could actually grow our family. And we even got a little welcome kit, which was amazing. But on the family planning side of things, treating my thyroid hadn't really fixed the problem with my cycles. I had gotten a couple, but they were wonky, and whether it was from the stress of moving or what, it had disappeared again. So as we're setting everything up, moving in, I have an annual physical coming up anyway, where I figured I'd bring up how I'm doing. But we're setting up things like the bedroom, and I'm like, I feel like something could go here, right here. A bassinet. This would be the perfect spot for a bassinet in our bedroom. Oh, and like I kept imagining what the nursery would look like. I knew it wouldn't be anything fancy. We are not rich people, but just picturing where everything would go, I was so ready to start. So ready to start. And when the date came for my annual physical, the doctor said yes, it could be stress causing my amenorrhea, but could be a number of other things, retesting my thyroid for one, but I got a referral to OBGYN, and I went to the OBGYN in October, and they did a few additional tests, testing my hormones, things like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, follicle stimulating hormone, everything like that. And then we get to very difficult phone call. So I'm in my car on my lunch break, and I have a voicemail from the OBGYN asking me to call back about some test results. I know that's probably not good, because otherwise they'd say, you're all good, here's the prescription, yada yada. So I nervously called them back, and I was told in my original appointment, the one where they ended up doing the blood draw, that chances were low that it was premature menopause. It's very uncommon, and even when it happens, you usually have to chase it down quite a bit. But as I'm sitting in my car talking to the nurse, I'm told that my test results are consistent with premature menopause. And you'll always hear about like your stomach dropping when you get bad news, and that's like, it just consumed me. I haven't wanted nothing more in my entire life than to be a mom. I work in childcare because I just love kids so much, and the first thing I did was call my husband, who wants to be a dad so bad, and who's hacking up a lung right now. I knew I married the right guy, because all he said in response was, we'll get through this together. It was like the most loving thing ever.
I was very quiet the rest of the day. We're just trying to process everything. And when I got home from work, he had bought me cupcakes from our local famous cupcake shop. It was delicious. And he got 2 of our favorites because he said, well, we normally split one. You need a whole one for yourself. So he's an absolutely amazing guy. But that's still just barely the middle of my story.
One thing I wanted to go back and add was probably the most heartbreaking part after I got diagnosed with premature menopause. So I'm dealing with all these emotions about finding out that I'm not going to be a mom. Like, the only thing I've wanted in my entire life, and it's not going to happen. At least in the way I thought it always would. And being that I work in childcare, I am around babies a lot. I spend most of my time with babies. So holding a baby, knowing that I'm not going to have one of my own, is hard enough. But I work with the kids who are just learning to talk. And if you have ever spent a considerable amount of time with a child who is about 1 year old, you will know that there is one word that encompasses any female caregiver, and that is mama. And I had a couple of kids who were particularly attached to me at this time. So just imagine finding out that you can't have kids of your own, you will never be a mother, and then having a little child with big eyes just looking with their lip all powdered out, looking up at you like, and going, mama, mama, for your attention. Like, the number of times I almost broke down in the middle of my classroom because one of my kids were calling me mama. It was really hard. Really hard. But I knew that somehow, some way, we were going to make it happen. I would have a baby that would call me mama, and it would be mama. Not just female caregiver. Not just woman I admire. It would be mama. Some way, somehow, I would have a baby that could call me mama, and I would be mama. So one of the things we had to do was go back to the OBGYN for just a chat and some additional tests. Of course, the first thing that was asked was, how you doing? Just like that. Like, it's not expecting, it's been great, because, yeah, you don't make that kind of a call and expect your patient to come enjoy us, especially when they told you at the previous appointment that they were ready to start trying for a baby, and now they literally can't. Like, it's not going to happen. I was given some information about a reproductive endocrinologist. I was told to follow up with my regular endocrinologist as well, because premature ovarian failure, as it's called, can be caused by an autoimmune disease, and as much as those organs are reproductive organs, they're also endocrine organs. So I need to get my hormones figured out, but also some additional tests. They wanted to take my anti-mullerian hormone level, which I had to look up what the heck that was. Basically, it is a hormone that maintains your egg follicles. And then they asked me if I wanted to do a chromosomal analysis to see if there was a genetic cause for what I was going through. She listed a few examples. One I was familiar with was Turner syndrome, which we both agreed was unlikely because there's very distinct physical characteristics involved with Turner syndrome that I
doesn't match up with me. But I'm very glad that I ended up doing that chromosome analysis. So the first result that I got back was the anti-Mullerian hormone, and the lower end of the normal range is, if I remember correctly, 0.58. That would be what you'd expect for, say, a woman in her mid to late 40s to have for an egg reserve. Mine was less than 0.03. I didn't need the doctor to tell me that any kids I have are not going to be genetically related to me, because I just don't have eggs at all. And I was already crushed. This was even more crushing. But I am the kind of person who takes whatever hardship I am going through and use it as fuel to jettison forward, to the point that I tend to get ahead of myself. I had half filled out an application to adoption before I even knew that we might be able to do some sort of fertility treatment. I was just preparing for whatever we had to do to become parents, even if it wasn't genetically our children, even if I would never be pregnant.
So I'm researching all of my options, and I want to make sure that I'm in a good place to do something like adopt, because adoption isn't buying a baby. It's working together with another parent who's also going through something extremely difficult and coming to an agreement together about what's best for the child. And it's difficult for the child as well, so I don't want to just dive into it not knowing what I'm getting into. And one of the things I did find is that it is recommended that you pursue other fertility options before jumping into adoption, just to make sure that your head's in the right place and that you have looked at other options, so that you are ready to fully accept an adopted child with your whole heart, which I knew I felt ready for, but I think my husband really wanted to at least try getting pregnant some way, somehow. And I wasn't against that. So we were looking into a lot of different avenues, and I knew, based on my egg count or lack thereof, that if I were to get pregnant, we would need an egg donor. And while I was researching all this, I got my chromosome analysis back, and it actually brought me a lot of peace that it was abnormal. The only thing it meant for my overall health is that I have premature ovarian failure. The deletion that I have is very common among women with premature ovarian failure. And I tried looking into what it would mean for any offspring, because this whole time I'm wondering, maybe I should have just had kids when I was broke and barely affording life, just for the sake of being able to have kids. But what I found is any girls that I would have premature ovarian failure, which, while you can live with, isn't pleasant. Why would I give that to a girl knowing I'm giving that to a girl? And any boys, I had trouble finding information, and it might not apply to my situation specifically, but the area on my X chromosome where I have a deletion, a lot of times if a male child is conceived with that abnormality, they don't make it to birth. Usually results in miscarriage or stillbirth, and the couple of times boys have made it to birth, they have profound disabilities. Not that that makes them any less of a person. It's just a matter of, why would I knowingly potentially do that to a child by trying to use my own eggs when I could just use an egg donor? So I got a lot of peace knowing that I shouldn't have had kids earlier. I shouldn't have kids at all, because I'm a genetic mutant. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Not that it's really their fault. There's a chance that the reason my genetic mutation came about is because my parents were considered of advanced age when I was conceived. They were in their mid to late 30s when I was born. So either poor egg quality, poor sperm quality, or just the piece of chromosome went missing at some point while the little zygote was splitting into me. But yeah, that diagnosis surprisingly gave me a lot of peace, and we're getting close to the end of the story and where I'm at today. So now we're getting into November of 2021, and we're pretty sure that we're going to at least try egg donation and see how that works. The problem is that is freaking expensive, and my husband and I are not well off at all. We're financially comfortable enough that we could support a child. We have a decent amount of savings if there was some sort of emergency, but if we completely empty that for trying to get pregnant, where is our savings going to be for supporting that child? So we started up a GoFundMe, and it's a bit slow to start. We do know that we'll probably get at least some sort of help from my husband's dad, because he really wants a grandchild from us, and he did make a significant contribution, but it was still well below our goal. We were like, how in the world are we going to raise all this money? Because IVF with an egg donor costs between $25,000 and $30,000. That's a lot of money to drop before even going through the process of being pregnant and bringing a child into this world. So I wasn't sure what we were going to do. And then in the millions of forums I was joining just to get some insight onto my condition and fertility treatments and everything like that, someone mentions that it's extremely affordable to do IVF with an egg donor abroad, and the Czech Republic is supposed to be the place to go in 2022 for fertility treatment. And at first I'm like, this sounds crazy, and it's going to be even more expensive to travel to do it. But when I actually look into it, we could travel to the Czech Republic, get treatment in the Czech Republic, and come home for about half the price. And it's looking more and more like that's the option we're going to do. We set up a call to get some more information. We were up bright and early at 5 a.m. so they could talk to us at about 1 or 2 p.m. their time. And we liked what we were getting. They were really willing and able to work with us, letting us know what we needed, what we should expect. Anytime I popped up with a question, they were more than happy to answer, both in email and over the phone. So I'm getting pretty excited for this. And then we had an interesting turn of events that I was not expecting at all. So one of the thoughts I had while researching this whole egg donation thing is I wish I had a sister that I could use as an egg donor. I do have a doppelganger cousin, but we hardly ever talk. We've met twice in our entire lives, and are particularly close. But when I posted an update on our GoFundMe, she pops up with, "I'll be your egg donor." I immediately send her a message being like, first of all, I can't thank you enough for even offering. But second of all, I want to make sure you know what you're getting into. You would be turned into a human pincushion. It's not necessarily a pleasant thing to go through. And she was adamant. She's willing to do what it takes. So I started researching like crazy what we could do to make this work. And while I'm researching, her dad dies. So I'm not sure where she's at. I've gone kind of quiet on updating her about my research because I want to give her some space to mourn. But it's looking more and more like this may not work out. Our biggest goal, the firmest goal, is to have a baby we can call our own with the finances stored away to give it at least a decent start at life. And if we have to pay the legal fees and the donor medications, everything like that, travel expenses, it might be too expensive, which I was willing to set aside. But all the doctors I've talked to had said, at her age, it's less likely that you'd get a viable embryo out of it. So I'm stuck making this extremely difficult decision. Do I put forth more money than I can come up with to use a family member as a donor who was being extremely generous offering, or do I turn down the deal of a lifetime? And more so, turn down the extremely generous offer of someone who just experienced one of the biggest losses of their life? I mean, what do I do? As of filming this, which is Christmas Eve 21, I am leaning towards going to the Czech Republic for infertility treatment, which we can probably save up the money for by this spring or summer. I need to wait until I have more paid time off available, which won't be until almost July. But that's what we're leaning towards. And I'm still not entirely sure about the whole situation with my cousin. I really want to make that work. I'm still looking at various things. But that's where I'm at. The one sure thing I've decided is making this vlog. Because someday I hope to share it with my baby, whether that baby is genetically related to my cousin, genetically related to someone in the Czech Republic, or not genetically related to my husband and I at all. It might be a child I've been pregnant with. It might be a child that we adopted. But this vlog is slightly for other people going through infertility, to share my story and hopefully make someone feel less alone. But it's mostly for my baby. One day I hope to share this with you and basically show you how much I wanted you in my life and how hard I'm willing to fight to get you. And this is just the start of the journey, but I want to film every moment possible, and hopefully it'll show you how much I love you and how excited I am for you to be in my life, and know that I love you with everything I have.